Warning: the following video contains material that some may find upsetting. Viewer discretion is advised.
I need something new to talk about. How did the first season of Velma turn out?
It's over. It's finally over.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm not reviewing that even for clicks. What else is on HBO Max?
I'm old. I'm satisfied. And you were my purpose.
So at this point, we've been waiting, 30 years for video game adaptations to finally get good? It's not just that previous video game adaptations have been bad, a lot of these can be counted amongst some of the worst movies ever made. Millions of dollars were lost making and marketing these films. Industries were forever changed by their failure, lives forever altered. It honestly got to the point where talking about any video game adaptation got kind of exhausting, because you couldn't talk about just one of them. You had to talk about all of them. But they all more or less suffered from the same problem. They didn't do the source material justice. To be fair, in the 90s, video games didn't have much story to begin with, so filmmakers just kind of did what the fuck ever. This is how you get stuff like the original Mario movie, Street Fighter, and Double Dragon. Then in the early 2000s, you had attempts at just making video game movies into brain-dead action films, but somehow they couldn't even do that right. This is how we got the Doom movie with Dwayne Johnson, the Dead or Alive movie, and pretty much anything made by Uwe Boll. Then we kind of had a period where video game movies got upgraded to competently made, but were still kind of forgettable. I'm talking Max Payne, Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia. Lately though, we've actually been getting pretty lucky. The new Mario movie has already been a huge success, there's a third Sonic film on the way, and animated shows like Castlevania and Arcane have really taken off too. But recently, we may be entering a brand new era, one where video game adaptations not only manage to do justice to the source material, but actually manage to surpass it. For those who have never played it, The Last of Us is an action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony. The story is that civilization has collapsed thanks to a mutated fungus that turns humans into cannibalistic monsters, and the United States has turned into a fascist regime that ruthlessly culls anyone who might be infected. You play as Joel, an ordinary man who is tasked with protecting Ellie, a young girl who is immune to the infection. After Joel's partner Tess gets infected and sacrifices herself to save him, he opts to travel America with Ellie, join up with survivors wherever they can, and try to see if they can use Ellie's blood to synthesize a cure. Recently, the games were adapted into a hit series on HBO Max, starring Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie. And while so far the series has stuck pretty closely to the first game, it still hasn't been afraid to change certain elements. In the games, you experience everything from Joel's perspective, since he's the character you control. But things don't work like that on television. In the show, Joel is his own character who makes his own decisions within the confines of the show's narrative, not because he's following the player's commands. As a result, the showrunners realized that this presented an opportunity for world building, and they could expand on parts of the game's narrative that could have been explored further. This led to what I think is the greatest triumph of the series so far: Bill and Frank. In the games, Bill is a survivalist who has set up his own town like a self-sufficient fortress, with booby traps set up to keep both infected and regular humans away. When Joel and Ellie come looking for supplies, they discover the body of Bill's partner, Frank, who committed suicide after getting infected.
Who the hell's Frank? He was my partner.
But the note that Frank leaves behind shows that his relationship with Bill had severely fractured, and they were on the outs even before our heroes arrived. Joel and Ellie get what they came for, but they end up leaving a heartbroken Bill to an uncertain fate.
So that's how you feel. Well, fuck you too, Frank.
The co-creator of the TV series, Craig Mazin, felt that that sequence of events would be too boring for a TV show, since it didn't have the agency that a video game would provide. So he reached out to Neil Druckmann, who co-created the original game, and suggested expanding on Bill and Frank's story, which Druckmann approved. So how does this improve on the games? Well, first of all, they got the perfect person to play Bill: Nick Offerman. The first few minutes of Bill's introduction tells us everything we need to know about him. Rather than letting himself get taken away by the government to be executed, he hides in a fortified bunker underneath his house, well equipped with guns and surveillance equipment in case they start anything. Once they're gone, he immediately sets out to raid the local town for supplies and ensure that he has enough electricity and gas to survive on his own. He also raids the local hardware stores and shops, not just to set up his traps and defenses, but to make sure he either has enough food or at least the ability to grow and cultivate his own food. So instead of just stumbling into Bill's town as a video game encounter, we get to see how he set it up and how someone could theoretically survive on their own in this new environment. We also get little windows into Bill's personality that we haven't seen before. He's gruff and clearly doesn't like people very much, but he's also a fantastic chef and a connoisseur of fine wine, hinting that there's more to him than we might initially suspect. This presents our next opportunity, getting to know Frank. In the games, we only encounter Frank after he's dead. In the show, Frank literally drops into Bill's life, falling into one of the tiger pits outside his house.
Boston is that way. You can make it by nightfall.
I'm really hungry. Haven't eaten in 2 days.
If I feed you, then every bum you talk to about it is gonna show up here looking for a free lunch. And this is not an Arby's.
Well, Arby's didn't have free lunch, it was a restaurant.
Bill initially tries to brush him off, but the chemistry between them is immediate, so he invites him in for a hot shower and some food.
A man who knows to pair rabbit with a Beaujolais.
I know I don't seem like the type.
No, you do.
As the old saying goes, opposites attract, because Frank is everything that Bill isn't. He's sensitive, artistic, empathetic, and witty. He values things and the people around him, and still thinks there's a chance at beauty and happiness, even in this harsh new world they found themselves in.
Wow. You know how much these are worth?
Currently nothing.
And his presence brings those same things out of Bill. We buy that these two would fall in love after just one scene together. Though that's not to say their romance goes entirely smoothly.
Give me a fucking break.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. You live in a psycho bunker where 9/11 was an inside job and the government are all Nazis.
The government are all Nazis!
Well, yeah, now, but not then.
But still, Frank encourages Bill to keep maintaining the town and even reach out to make new allies, which is how Joel and Tess enter the picture. Tess sets up an emergency radio code with Frank, while Joel offers supplies to fortify Bill's defenses. In fact, after the darkness and sadness of the first 2 episodes of the show, this spotlight on Bill and Frank ends up being the palate cleanser that the audience probably needed by now. It shows how some semblance of happiness is still possible in this terrible new world, that something as simple as having a loved one can make even the darkest of times bearable. But nothing lasts forever.
I'm sorry.
For what?
Getting older faster than you.
I like you older.
Bill and Frank get a good few years together, but Frank's health eventually starts to fail, confining him to a wheelchair and robbing him of his motor skills. It's never specified what he has, only that it had no cure even before the apocalypse, though the most likely candidates are either MS or ALS. And with no medical help available, Frank sees the writing on the wall and decides to go out on his own terms. All he wants is one more perfect day with Bill before he does.
Just give me one more good day. Then you will crush all of these up, put them in my wine. I will drink it. And I will fall asleep in your arms.
I can't.
Do you love me?
Yes.
Then love me the way I want you to.
And in a heartbreaking montage, we see that last day, dressing up in their finest, getting married next to the piano that brought them together, and sharing one more meal together. There's just one more thing. In the games, Bill's fate was left uncertain. The series decides to tie up that loose end.
Were there already pills in the bottle?
Enough to kill a horse. I'm old. I'm satisfied. And you were my purpose.
I do not support this. But from an objective point of view, it's incredibly romantic. Take me to bed.
Sometime after, Joel and Ellie return to Bill's compound, but the disarray signals to Joel that something is wrong. Inside the house, they find a letter and a key to the car that will get them to where they need to go.
If you find this, Please do not come into the bedroom. We left the window open so the house wouldn't smell. I'm guessing you found this, Joel, because anyone else would have been electrocuted or blown up by one of my traps. Take anything you need. I leave you all of my weapons and equipment. Use them to keep...
Bill assumed that Joel would be arriving there with Tess, and Joel is reminded harshly of how he failed to protect her. But Bill's words offer him some comfort.
I used to hate the world, and I was happy when everyone died. But I was wrong, because there was one person worth saving. That's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do. And God help any motherfuckers who stand in our way.
In the games, Bill and Frank served as a warning for what Joel could become, how the end of the world could rob you of your humanity. Instead, they serve as an example for what Joel needs to become. How Joel needs to step up and become Ellie's protector, in the very slim hopes that she could bring us a better tomorrow. Because as Bill and Frank showed us, we all need each other, during the good times and the bad.
If I'm taking you with me, there's some rules you gotta follow. Rule 1, you don't bring up Tess, ever. Rule 2, you don't tell anyone about your condition. Rule 3, you do what I say when I say it. Repeat it.
What you say goes.
It's your first time in a car?
It's like a spaceship.
Seatbelt. Oh, no, wait. No, leave it. Leave it. Oh, this is good. This is Linda Ronstadt. Do you know who Linda Ronstadt is?
You know I don't know who Linda Ronstadt is.
There's a lot of reasons why video game adaptations are suddenly improving so much. For one, it helps that the people who grew up playing these games are the ones who are making them now, so there's a genuine passion behind it. And another big point is that video game storytelling has gotten to the point where we can include depth like this on a regular basis. But there's always room for improvement, for expansion, to tell a simple human story about love that was found at the end of the world, and to remind us that when God closes a door, sometimes, he leaves a window open.